Hi, I'm Rose Ginosar. I'd love to welcome you right now to the newly renewed Tower of David Jerusalem Museum. After 10 years of planning and 3 years of construction, we are honored to open up our new museum. Right now we're sitting in the introductory gallery of the exhibition, and sitting with me, I have the director and chief curator of the museum, Eilat Lieber, who has actually shepherded the project from its inception until its culmination today as a new museum. Along with Eilat, we have Mr. Yotam Halperin, who is the head of our newly created Education and Learning Center, now we're getting ready to welcome thousands of children and adults back to the museum, back to learn and experience the story of Jerusalem. And I'm especially honored to welcome Nomi Seixas, who has come in from New York to be with us for this festive opening. Nomi is the executive project manager of Local Projects, one of the leading design firms in the world. We have worked with Local Projects for a number of years, along with her, with the creator and the founder of Local Projects, Jake Barton. I think Nomi is his right-hand woman, right? And Nomi has worked with us on other projects and, of course, on this timeline that you see behind us right now. And I'd like to open up this short conversation that we're going to have about technology and learning and museums and how we actually integrate knowledge with a question to Eilat. Eilat, why did you turn to Local Projects when you were thinking about making the timeline?
It's a good question. Actually, the most challenging part of the project was how to engage our visitors, and especially the young generation, with the content. It's quite a long story. It's a lot of information, and I knew that we have to find the right way to tell the story. I had a chance to visit the 9/11 Museum in New York and the London Museum in London. And I saw how beautiful and how smart is the exhibition that Local Project developed there. And that's why I knew they will be our best partners to bring the beauty of the timeline of Jerusalem to the public.
And Nomi, I just want to ask you, what is it like working from New York with Jerusalem, and it was actually during COVID, so there was very little human contact. How was it like building this project?
That's a wonderful question. First of all, I just want to say thank you to all of you for this moment. We know at Local Projects what it takes to get to this moment in a project, how much energy, how much time, how much has to go right in holding a vision and bringing together huge numbers of stakeholders, huge numbers of designers, of curators, of staff, of educational experts to arrive here. So big congratulations to you all. It's a huge moment. So to your question in terms of, we actually, I think, started our engagement, and we were very fortunate in 2018, 2019. And this was really key because we had had an opportunity to come here to work together, not on this project, but on other projects with you, to get to know our teams. We had had the opportunity to meet your chief archaeologist and meet Reem and really start to dig into the layers of the site and the layers of the history of Jerusalem, working together on other projects. And I think this really primed us so that our team was already very deeply steeped in the history, both of the site and the story of Jerusalem. And so when you came to us with this idea and a very specific design brief that you all had, I think we were able to start that conversation. And even though by that time we were really into COVID, it was that first summer of COVID in 2020, our two teams were able to really work together to both refine that strategy, that creative vision together, really understand what the needs were going to be of the core audiences and your visitors, and then together craft a creative concept that was going to meet those expectations within that design brief.
Yotam, after being charged with the responsibility of being in charge of the education of learning, and so many of these thousands of people coming to the museum that will come through, millions actually over the next few years, what were your expectations of something like a technological visual timeline?
Well, I think it's such a great question because maybe it's the biggest question of education in the 21st century. I mean, we live in a technological world. We think through technology. Jean-Paul Amari, a French writer, once wrote, like 100 years ago, wrote something that is very relevant today, that people in our days, he wrote it 100 years ago, a decade ago, people in his days, he tells, don't really get to understand nothing, but they do get to be astonished. And through that, only through that, they can understand something. And I think that is what I would be expecting from technology in a nowadays museum. I think that is what you made, actually, in this timeline, that it's astounding. And one can go through such a mindful experience. Through that, as an educator, I would like to touch his essence, his identity, and then his knowledge. And I would like to bring a question back to you, Naomi. What was your creativity process when you first heard about this project of a timeline, which is such full of facts and knowledge and details?
That's a wonderful question and such an eloquent interpretation of the idea of technology. And we actually talk about this in terms of a driving force from our studio practice a lot, that even though we are very well known for the merging of technology, experience, and architecture, it is always technology as a platform and as a service for the creation of meaningful narrative and meaningful visitor engagement towards crafting of storytelling. And really, what we've done here, I think, is a manifestation both in terms of the design brief, which we were given, and we always really start both with the idea that technology is really just a tool that we're going to use, and we will get to that technological solution. But if we don't begin with the core design brief in terms of why are we doing this? Who is this for? What are we hoping that the institution, how will the institution be using this to serve their stakeholders? And I think those early conversations, and back to your question about the creative process, helps us to inform our creative process and developing a strategy together that will answer those questions. So for example, the creative brief that we all had in that conversation at the very beginning was really asking us to develop something that had both a big wow that was going to grab visitors right away, but also offer a deeper dive opportunity.
It's exactly that, and more than that, because many sites and museums will ask you to have a seat and start with a nice movie telling you the story, what are you going to see. We wanted a different experience. This is an introduction gallery. You just met with the Tower of David, you just met with Jerusalem. We wanted the visitor to be active, not passive. We wanted them to discover, to search for information, because it's different. When you are choosing what you would like to know or to see, your mind is open for the rest of the museum. This was the experience we wanted to create in our first step in the museum.
That's beautifully articulated, absolutely true. And I think that was a key driver as we wanted to create something that allowed visitors to create their own meaning, their own narrative, as they were going to explore and really use this platform in their own way, but then also giving them context and giving them that framework from which to explore so that they could understand the rest of their visit as they moved through the more thematic galleries later on.
I would like to ask a question about this exploration process that Eilat always talks about, and it's really visible here, but there's like a hidden question. A museum, and especially such an astounding product, tells facts. I mean, this product behind us tells details, tells layers above layers of details. Me as an educator, I believe that me and my staff, our mission is to bring the audience to see this and ask a question. What is the process that you are bringing in the technology to touch the details of the knowledge which you tell as facts? I mean, this period belongs to this year till this year, that and that happened, this is how the city looked like. How does it help us to explore? You understand my question?
I do understand your question. I would like to posit that while at the core, an asset might be a container for facts, that really the facts themselves are constructed in a way that tell mini stories and illustrate through visitor-driven engagement to understand the whole of a particular era. And so the meaning making from it is about providing enough contextual information that really gives a historical narrative from 3,000 years ago up until modern Israel. It's very well laid out contextually, but allows visitors to take both deeper dives into a particular era, a particular history, and then also start to understand links beyond that particular era and what else was happening in Jerusalem at the time by looking at the physical map of that era. They can watch a video about that era. They can also, and that's one of the I think, more wonderful discovery moments that happens in the timeline itself, start to look at meaning across geographies as well as across time.
I can suggest also another answer and continue what Naomi just said, that museums, just like any other art that I can think of, just like good book or a good movie or a show, just need to make you curious, to continue, explore, and really go deep down. This is just the beginning. And if it's good, the museum, the exhibition, the show, the art, it will impact your imagination to continue discover, because it's 1,000-meter museum. You will spend just 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. We can never tell the whole story, but we want the visitors, the educators, the school children to be curious about Jerusalem, to come back home, open their computer, open their Google, open the book maybe, and to find more, because we did it. That's the question, if we will succeed to do it.
I want to take us to a little bit of a different place. We've talked a lot about education and facts and exploration. I want to talk a little bit about the aesthetics. I think it's beautiful, and I want to ask Eilat, where did the idea come from of this whole, the aesthetics of this timeline?
I think it was one of the main goals of the new exhibition, since we are here inside the most beautiful space in Jerusalem. I mean, really, look at that space. I mean, there's no other space in Jerusalem that contain all the layers from the history. It's well preserved during the ages, and we wanted to bring the story, the history of Jerusalem in the best way that we can. So we had to choose all the images, archaeological finds, illustrations, maps, but to create an aesthetic experience to the visitor to complete the whole atmosphere of the Tower of David.
And just to continue on that, I think one of the things that we were so excited by when we started to work together was your vision of design for this space and the honoring of the idea that an elevated design aspiration to bring that to honor the historic site of the building. And I think this carried through both with the architectural program that you led, as well as with the exhibitions, with the delayings, into this media program, where there was, even amongst all of these various groups, a very clear aesthetic language around an icon system, around a refinement and an elevation of what is essential, so that we didn't need to have too much noise, too many distractions. And sometimes in museums, as they get developed and we're dealing with lots of stakeholders, there can be an impulse to add more and more and more. And that can often be at the disservice of the visitor experience at the end. And so the holding to that line allowed local projects, then especially with this entry piece and the first piece that people were going to see, to make good on that idea of a big wow. And I think with the Sounds of Time idea and the particle system of this layers of digging and archaeology, and the idea that each era is created from the sands and the dust of the era before it in this city. Once we sort of got to that within this first big move, we were able to bring together and build from the icon system that is then going to be the introduction to the rest of the experience that visitors will have.
And I just want to add what I thought was remarkable is the interdependency of designers upon each other. Because as soon as you came up, I think that both of you, Eilat and Local Project, came up with this idea of the sands of time, of this kind of looking at history straight and also through a kind of film, a kind of mist of time. It was carried out throughout the other galleries in the museum. If I look at the Titus Arch, and I see how that also, it's the idea of the sands falling through. And I love that kind of play between your design firm in New York and our wonderful design team of Hanan and Tal DeLange here in Israel, and how they could bring that together, and how that you both have these ideas that carry through.
I just want to remind you that Yoav Cohen, he's our creative director. He never worked in museums. Actually, I first met him in the theater. He used to do beautiful video art for different kind of shows. And I saw his approach, how he's working with technology. And I said that this can be the best partner for local projects and for Playground in Tel Aviv, because his mind was open to culture, dance and theater and history of art. And that's why it was so important to build the right team, to show Jerusalem in the best way that we could.
Build on that as well, in terms of a wonderful collaboration. And back to the first point of that, this really takes good collaboration in order to realize these pieces. Working with these local firms, as we were able to do through you and through the museum, is such a demonstration of a success, where we were able to really refine that vision, that concept, and allow for and entrust and the work that Yoav did and Playground did to elevate and make it happen is extraordinary. Also, what I want to congratulate you and the architecture team on is this incredible seamless integration of exhibitry and building, which is really remarkable to have taken something that is as old as it is, and with its authenticity that it is, and have this contemporary intervention that doesn't feel like it's an attack on the original, that it's sort of a careful elevation of it's really beautiful.
Thank you. We really feel that they did an amazing job, And we know that it's inside the details, every single detail, lighting, concrete, every single part of the architecture and an exhibition. Actually, it was the team that worked together to figure out the best way to create the visitor experience. And it's really exciting to see people coming, young people, adults. One of our concerns was how adults will actually
use the technology,
contact the wall, because we know it's challenging, but it happens.
Maybe we'll just ask Yotam, what is his experience with adults and children with the wall? How you've been now? It's been a few weeks already. What's the experience?
Okay, so first of all, let me please disagree with the separation that you made before, that we're talking education and now we're talking aesthetics, because aesthetics is one of the primary things that I think Tower of David is now educating to. That you can come to Jerusalem, come to a museum, and be amazed by how beautiful it can be, how aesthetic it can be, how even in a minimalistic way you can gain so much information. And this idea of sense of time is, I believe that maybe it's just related to Marshall McLuhan's thoughts of the medium is the message, the aesthetic here, and the idea of sense of time is I think even if nobody will actually read what's behind, what's the text, what's the so-called knowledge, the view, the experience is a knowledge itself. And if I go back to your question, Rose, it's amazing. We see here adults, we see here young kids, we see here children. Last week we had here 4th grade children. And we thought to ourselves, okay, maybe the wall is maybe too high level for them. They didn't want to leave. It was amazing that they just didn't want to leave. A whole class here just examined and explored together through questions that they're being asked, and it worked just absolutely terrific. Also with the seniors, then maybe sometimes you can think that they are like, okay, they're like old school and it won't be intuitive for them. It works great. And even if they don't dip really down to the experience, as I said before, is just amazing to see.
Some time today observing different visitors using the gallery, which is a true pleasure to get to do at the end of the experience. And I am delighted by this as a tool and a platform for visitors to become engaged in and continue to make meaning of. And I think, as you were saying about seniors, I watched a number of older visitors really make use of the play button for the video summaries of each of these eras. I also watched tour guides come in and tour guides who are preparing to be bringing tours to Israel. They wanted the deep dive. They were going through meticulously, asset by asset. I watched couples come in and start to have really playful experiences where they were realizing that they could, on each screen, pull up a different map of the different eras and understand how that was happening across different eras, how the city was physically changing. So I think it is a dynamic tool that really provides context, provides meaning, but then invites visitors to really explore, really get engaged, get curious, as Eilat said. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, this has been too short, but I want to thank Yotam and Eilat and Noam. So I want to invite you to come visit us. We obviously to see our new exhibition, but to see, we will be constantly adding new exhibitions. Our continuing exhibitions, as we've had for many years, will be continuing. And the museum itself, as we'll be updating and creating and bringing the newest in culture, art, history of Jerusalem here for everyone the world over.